What we have here is the 2024 Le Mans Winner number 51. This is the Ferrari 499P. And yes, this is by Bbuargo. This is from what they call their racing series of models. This is 18th scale, so 1/18th scale. And before you ask, yes, this wrapping around this is due to this is a brand new model. It is a borrowed model from past diners. So thank you, past diners, for allowing me to borrow this. But this has yet been purchased, and we just don't want to take it apart because, well, I don't think the customer would appreciate it that much. So that's why that's there, just to let you know. But anyway, first impressions when I opened or looked at this model overall, I was very impressed with the shape of this model. This is a budget model, and the shape looks fantastic. I'm very sure it has a lot to do with the fact that this is the Le Mans winning race car. So the company, Bbuargo, wanted to make sure that they put their best efforts towards this particular model. And keep in mind, this is a budget model. But just the overall look, I am very impressed. Very impressed. The other thing I want to point out about this model is that typically Bbuargos are metal die cast, and this is metal die cast, and they're usually fully opening. This particular model is not. The only parts that open on this particular model are the doors. So you have access to the doors, but you do not have access to the engine compartment. And I'm very sure there's a lot of different reasons for that, but I have my theories behind why Bbuargo probably did not want to go through the efforts or trouble of trying to reproduce that engine. The other thing that this model does have that you probably won't see in its resin counterparts, other than the doors opening, is that the wheels do steer in the front. There is no working suspension, but again, the wheels do turn in the front. Just taking a closer look at the rear of this model, now there's not a ton of things to really capture here. There's a lot of carbon fiber. You do have the huge diffuser back here. All of this is presented fairly accurately to the real thing. There are some elements missing, but nothing that would really detract from being interested in purchasing this model. The same thing goes for the front of the model as well. Again, because this is a sports car and it is a prototype sports car, there's not going to be a ton of intricate details or anything like that. But I like the fact that, again, this front end is reproduced fairly accurately to the actual car. And just some things that I really like about this, especially, are the LEDs. These are pretty good for a budget model. They definitely look the part. You have this, there are no perforated grills on this model at all, but the way that Bbuargo, and you'll see this in a close-up, the way that Bbuargo's reproduced it, it's more than acceptable. Taking a closer look at the wheels, lots of detail to see here. You see that there is a ceramic brake, and you can actually see the rotors do have the pits or holes in them. You have a Brembo spec brake caliper, which is very nicely done. The rim itself is very nicely detailed. Keep in mind, again, this is a budget model. And surprise, surprise, a Bbuargo model. It actually does have the valve stem. I really like this script on the tires. It's very nice. No complaints there at all. And that again applies to the rear wheel as well. Lots of detail. Very nicely done. Again, Brembo script. Valve stems. Nicely lettered tires. Now let's take a closer look at this beautiful piece. The carbon fiber on this model is the method that I call the Bbuargo method, which is taking a plastic piece and actually etching in this pattern. And I still say it's one of the best ways for a certain kind of carbon fiber, not especially say for race cars, that at times I wish better companies, I shouldn't say better, but higher end companies would actually do this method. I think it looks great. It's a closer look at those LEDs that I was referring to. And no, they're not as good as the ones that were on that Ferrari I did last week, but they look really good. Nice clear lenses to expose them. And then if you look further, I really do like that you have some idea of where that airflow goes through this air dam in the front. So it's very nice. And here's that carbon fiber again. It's just, I think it looks really great. All of the decals are just that, decals. And I wouldn't expect them to not be, but my point being that these are water decals and the quality of them are decent. I've seen better on higher end models. And the biggest difference that I notice a lot of times is the transparency in the decals, and that gives me an idea of the quality of it. So maybe not with this camera, but if you're looking at this with your bare eyes, there is some of the red that bleeds in from the white. So that this gives you an idea of how thin the decals are. This is supposed to be a perforated grill. They just used a pattern into the plastic, and it's acceptable. I really do admire this piece here. It looks like it's metal. It's not. It's actually plastic. But the paint they used on it is actually very believable. So I find that very impressive. Here's a closer look at these beautiful wheels again. I have to say these are probably the best wheels I've ever seen on a Bbuargo. I'm just very impressed with them. The paint on this model is very good. It's nice, it's even. I haven't seen any paint rash. And you can tell the paint is put on pretty thick because you can see the orange peel pattern in there. But very nice. As I mentioned before, the only parts that open on this model are the doors. And so some pretty decent detail for a budget model. Everything that you see here would probably have some color in it if it was a higher end model. Not so much with this budget model. On the driver's side, you have a very nice steering wheel with detail in it. You can see the neutral indicator on the steering wheel. That's what you see that in there for. Some control panel. Very nice. Now the seat belt is all blacked out, which on the real car it's not, so is the seat itself. Again, it's a cost-cutting measure. They didn't want to add a lot of color, maybe cost you a little bit more. The seat belt is not a stitched seat belt, it's a thin piece of plastic. The opening to this is very tight, so it makes it somewhat difficult to actually see everything in here. You do have the dog legs for the hinges for the door. And the glass for the door. It's a nice thick piece of plastic. And it is transparent, but it definitely blurs out some of the details inside. So opening the door to see the bits is definitely a plus. And there you are, the Ferrari 499P, the 2024 Le Mans winning hypercar. And now to my conclusions. To say that this Ferrari 499P by Bbuargo is good is an understatement. This is an excellent model. It checks plenty of boxes. They have the shape right. The wheel tire combination is fantastic. There are valve stems. The underside is fully detailed. You couldn't ask for more for a model that prices less than $100 US. I've seen them as low as $70 US. And you're getting a lot for that money. If I place this model next to any of my higher end prototypes, it fits right in. Because this model has great shelf presence. There's no getting around that. So if you want a fantastic Le Mans winning model, no doubt the Bbuargo is the way to go. Now, no, it's not going to be as good as the BBR or Look Smart versions. Those definitely have more detail, but they cost significantly more money. We're talking hundreds of dollars more money, and I'm not sure it's worth it. That's how good this Bbuargo is. There is another version of this model, minus the basic racing one. In that version, the model actually isn't that different. It has more to do with the packaging. The packaging includes a much nicer base. I believe it has a plaque on it as well. And it also comes with a protective plastic cover. So if you want those extras to display this beautiful model, if you're a one model collection person, then by all means, this is probably the better version to get. You're probably looking at about $20 more for that special edition. But I wouldn't be surprised if Bbuargo, off of the success of this model, comes out with what would be considered their signature edition. And that would have more detail. So it'd be really interesting if they would come out with that. I would love to see the differences. Please like and subscribe. That is the best way I'm going to know you're enjoying these videos. I really do appreciate your time, and I'll see you next time.